Hi everybody, I'm underneath a 15,000 pound block of bones and we are undercutting and plastering so that we can get this block out. And so what I'm doing is I'm plastering essentially the ceiling of this block here so that nothing falls out. And the next step is going to be cementing in this big 4x4 underneath. And we're going to have a couple of these underneath this giant block so that it prevents flex of the jacket. And that way the whole weight of the bones on the inside is not pushing farther down on the bottom of the jacket, which we've had a few problems from that, and so now we're trying to figure out more ways to essentially prevent flex. And so this is going to do great. So we're going to plaster this big board in and keep going, and hopefully keep making progress on getting this ready to move. Dimetrodons are one of the coolest animals on the planet. They're the very first land carnivores. During the Permian 290 million years ago, Dimetrodon was the biggest carnivore on the planet. There was nothing bigger than him. And he was the very first carnivore to dominate land ecosystems. So he's very, very special, and he came at a time 60 million years before the first true dinosaurs. So these are the biggest meat eaters, biggest predators on the planet. For a very long time before we see something that we would call a dinosaur. The Debera block is pretty special because we have multiple species of Dimetrodon in it. This is something that scientists have been debating for a long, long time, 100 years, of how many species of Dimetrodon lived in the north central Texas area, this cratic bone bed area. Since about 1878, there was always suspected to be 2 or 3 species, and it was very difficult to be able to identify those because there was not enough material to be able to do comparisons. With the Debera block now, we have about 8 skeletons in this block of mixed articulation, mixed completeness, and there's probably 4 or 5 species, and so this is the first time that we're actually going to be able to distinguish what makes a Dimetrodon species different from another one. So the 3 species that we know of, Lumisci and Grandis and Gigantomogenous, there's going to be 4th and 5th species that we're going to be naming. And it all based on the skull, the dentition, a lot of other bones in the body that really show the differences. A good comparison today is in the cat families. So in the cat families of Africa, you've got lions and you've got cheetahs. They're all big cats, but they're different varieties of these big cats. So Dimetrodon was similar. There's not going to be just one type. There's going to be multiple different varieties, and they're all different based on what they're eating. So an animal that's really big like a lion is going to be taking down big animals. So the Grandis is the biggest species. And then we have smaller species like Lumisci who have more slender and graceful jaws. Those are the species that are harder to distinguish because they look a lot alike, but there are some little subtle differences that we're seeing. So it's going to be fun with this Debera block. It's going to be the first time that we can really distinguish all the different species that were here 290 million years ago.
So the museum has been here for about 8.5 years, and I got to grow up with it. I was fortunate enough to be able to grow up with a source of knowledge, a source of opportunity here that I was able to learn from, and fortunately I was able to work here. I mean, I didn't even know that geology and paleontology was an option until I started working here at the Whiteside. And I didn't even start working here as a geology with an interest or paleontology with an interest. But the more I worked there and the more I learned and the more I watched Chris and Holly do the things they do, and they went out and they found bones and they discovered new things, the more interested I got in it. And it was one of those things that after a year I still wasn't bored. So I asked to get more involved, and I got interested, and I changed my major. I mean, it's one of those things where they've taken someone who knew nothing of science and had very little background in geology and paleontology, and now they've given me more knowledge than I can think of just in the last 1.5 years. Being able to go out to one of the best bone beds in the world is really beneficial to me and my future and my career. Going out here, I mean, there's not a day that I come out here that I don't say, oh wow, look at this, or I don't learn something new from Chris or Holly, or I'm not just amazed by how much stuff there is out here.
Dimetrodon was described by Edward Drinker Cope in 1878. Seymour, Texas has been known for 3 Dimetrodon species, and the Debera block consists of these 3 species plus a 4th species, which is undescribed. This is going to be really exciting for our research, having all these different Dimetrodon species in one block. Another specimen in the Debera block that's really exciting is Evelyn the Cecodonosaurus. And Cecodonosaurus looks really similar to Dimetrodon, but there's a lot of key differences about them that makes them their own animal. And Evelyn could potentially be one of the most complete Cecodonosaurus skeletons ever found.
So one of the things that we look at when we're trying to determine the different species of Dimetrodon is the shapes of the teeth. So carnivores specifically have a dentition that's made for the type of food they're eating. So very big carnivores, lions and tigers, have really big teeth for bone crunching and slicing through dense flesh. The smaller animals with smaller teeth, look at crocodiles and alligators that have conical teeth that are specific for eating fish. So everybody who eats meat or carnivores have really specific types of teeth. So Dimetrodon and all the different species of Dimetrodon that we have here in our bone beds, they have teeth that are pretty specific for what they're eating as well. So the very, very big Dimetrodon, Dimetrodon grandis, has very big teeth, and there just happens to be a really good tooth that's starting to be exposed right here in the ground. And so I'm going to pick this tooth up here and show you guys. You can see the monster what we call a post canine, and so one of the teeth that is in the back of the front of the back of the skull. And so there's one of the massive teeth there that is used for slicing through big material, big bones and big flesh, very sharp serrations. So the Dimetrodons that we find here have these huge massive teeth, but we see other species of Dimetrodons that don't have massive teeth. They have smaller teeth, they have smaller and thinner blades. So it definitely tells you that they're not eating the same things as their really big counterparts. So looking at these teeth is going to be a great way, especially the skulls, to tell what species we have here in the museum.
So for the future generations that are going to grow up here in Seymour and even in the surrounding communities, the museum is a huge deal. It's an opportunity to learn something that isn't widely known throughout small communities. Like in the bigger schools and the bigger communities, sure, there's opportunities there, but there aren't as many opportunities in small towns. And the fact that we have the museum here is just another opportunity that some small communities don't get. So what we learn and what we find when we come out here is something that the future generations are going to get to base their knowledge off of. It's something that they're going to have as a foundation for the future of their own careers, and it's something that I was fortunate enough to have as a foundation for my own career.
It's a really special feeling when I have young girls come up to me and tell me that I persuaded them to pursue science. And I'm in a very fortunate position that I have the ability to do that and to lead young women who are interested in paleontology. And it's really exciting to witness and teach young women like Mackenzie and Lauren and give them the tools and resources that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And it's really incredible that they have the opportunity to work on one of the most important Dimetrodon blocks in the world, and they're gonna go down in the history books with the Debera block. And I'm really grateful that I have the opportunity to be able to guide these young women in the right direction and helping them pursue their paleontology careers. And action.
Hey guys, so we got out today and Carl the magician got our block flipped. So after 3 years we got the Debera block completely flipped, and we lost a little bit of matrix in the middle, but I was expecting that because of the size. But all the skeletons on the peripheral of the jackets, the Evelyn skeleton, the Debera skeleton, and the other 3 or 4 skeletons on the edges are still okay. So we have the entire block flipped, and it's all thanks to Carl.
Oh, well.
And what do you think about this, Carl?
It's pretty fun. It's always a challenge. You don't know what angle to pull. That's the problem. It's all a guess, and sometimes it works, and we haven't destroyed too many, but we've got a pretty good record so far.
That's good. We couldn't have done it without Carl. He's one of our board members, and we're excited to go on to the next phase of getting this to the museum.